This is gonna sound insane, but the most glorious, chaotic, and ultimately satisfying Christmas of my life. The one that turned a mild-mannered graphic designer into a neighborhood legend. It all started on a wobbly ladder, right after Thanksgiving. I was wobbling there, my knuckles scraping against the aluminum gutter, muttering, "You're getting too old for this, David." My breath pluming out in the crisp, cold Saturday air, feeling every one of my 40-something years. In my left hand, I held a string of C12 Christmas bulbs. Not those flimsy, newfangled pinprick LED things that look like a swarm of angry, anemic fireflies. No, these were the real deal. The big, old-fashioned, incandescent bulbs. The ones that get warm to the touch and glow with the kind of deep, rich, genuine nostalgic color that reminds you of spiked eggnog, a fireplace, and 24 hours of holiday movie marathons. The glass was thick, the colors were vibrant, red, green, blue, orange, white. This was the one box of decorations that had survived my last move, a sacred, treasured relic from a simpler, less complicated time, and I was determined to use them. I was clipping the very last bulb onto the gutter line, feeling a genuine, uncomplicated kernel of pure holiday joy when I felt it. The stare. That unmistakable pin and needles feeling on the back of your neck, like an insect landing there, a sudden, unpleasant prickle of intense judgment. I glanced down over my shoulder, and there she was. Carol Peterson. She was standing motionless on the sidewalk across the street, positioned perfectly next to her perfectly manicured, and I assume, Willow Creek Estates HOA-approved boxwood shrubs. She wasn't just getting her mail. She wasn't walking her yapping abomination of a poodle. She was watching me, and she was holding a clipboard. A clipboard, man, on a Saturday at 4:30 p.m., ready to deliver official judgment. Oh, for the love of the season, I sighed, clipping the final bulb in place. I gave the whole string a little jiggle, and the entire roof line lit up in a glorious, chaotic, multicolor blaze. It was beautiful. It was cheerful. It was Christmas, exactly as I remembered it. David, her voice cut through the cold air like a frozen rake. I pretended not to hear, focusing intently on the very important task of safely descending the ladder. David, this time she was at the foot of my driveway. I heard the crunch, crunch, crunch of her sensible, zero-fun shoes on my gravel walkway. I looked down. She had her patented, disappointed face on, the one that clearly said, "Your recycling bin contains non-recyclable items, and I am personally wounded by your failure to comply." "Hey, Carol," getting in the spirit, I said, forcing a smile that felt about as genuine as a $3 bill. She looked up, shielding her eyes, not from the sun, which was already setting, but from the sheer, unbridled, incandescent joy and color of my C12 bulbs. "Those aren't on the approved list," she said. It wasn't an accusation. It was a verdict. I blinked. "What list, Carol?" "They're Christmas lights. You know, for the holiday. For Christmas." Section 8, Article 4 of the Willow Creek Estates Homeowners Association bylaws, she recited, as if it were scripture carved on tablets of cold, hard beige stone. "I have a copy right here." She actually tapped the clipboard. "All seasonal illuminations affixed to the exterior of a dwelling must be of a warm white, single color palette, preferably LEDs, to maintain visual harmony." I stared at her. Visual harmony? "Carol, it's Christmas. It's supposed to be a little unharmonious. It's supposed to be messy. It's festive. Your lights," she said, looking back up at them with a physical grimace, a sort of full-body shudder, "are chaotic. They are aesthetic discord." Chaotic. That was the word she used. My cheerful, nostalgic, big-bulbed symbols of peace on earth and goodwill toward men were chaotic. "Well, I like them," I said, my grip tightening on the ladder. "And I'm pretty sure half the neighborhood still uses these." "Half the neighborhood," she said, making a sharp, ticking noise with her pen against the clipboard, "will also be receiving a rectification notice. You have 24 hours to remove them and comply with the warm white standard." "Or what?" I said. The jovial feeling had completely evaporated, replaced by a cold prickle of defensive anger. "Or," she said, giving a tight, triumphant little smile, "a fine will be issued. $150, and it doubles every 48 hours of noncompliance. Good evening, David. Do try to be harmonious." She turned, her back ramrod straight, and crunched her way back across the street. I stood there on the ladder in the gathering dark, staring at my beautiful, chaotic lights. I scoffed, but that cold prickle of fear confirmed it. She wouldn't dare issue a fine for this. I was wrong. The next afternoon, I went out to get the mail. Taped squarely to the center of my front door, flapping in the breeze, was a crisp, cream-colored envelope. Violation notice. Willow Creek Estates HOA. Improper and non-harmonious holiday illuminations. Non-compliant color palette. Chaotic multi. Fine, $150. The note ended with, "We're all in this together, David. Let's keep Willow Creek harmonious." That little, handwritten David and the smug smiley face next to it were, somehow, the worst part. I crumpled the notice in my fist. "Harmonious," I whispered. "Oh, I'll give you harmonious. I'll give you so much harmony, Carol, you won't know what hit you. I'm a reasonable guy. I really am. I'm a graphic designer. I work from home. I trim my hedges. But the sheer unadulterated petty tyranny of an HOA, that power imbalance can take a mild-mannered man and turn him into a focused, dedicated revolutionary." The next morning, I made coffee, strong, black, and bitter, and marched into my home office. I slapped Carol's Bible, the thick three-ring binder of the CCNRs, on my desk. "All right, you miserable brick of legalese," I muttered. "Let's dance." I spent the next 3 hours reading. It was a journey into pure, soul-crushing suburban madness. I learned my garage door rules, my mailbox rules, my gnome rules. And then I found it. Section 8, Seasonal and Holiday Displays. I read Article 4 slowly. The rules explicitly banned multicolor bulbs, cool white bulbs for 1000K or higher, blinking, strobing, or animated lights, projector-style lights. I read the list 3 times. My designer brain, the one I used to find creative solutions, started working. They had defined the color and the behavior of the light. They had banned projectors, but they hadn't said a word about wavelength. They hadn't said a word about the light source having no visible color. It was their fatal flaw. A slow, dangerous smile spread across my face. They don't want multicolor. They don't want cool white. They only want warm white light. I typed into my browser, HOA lighting loopholes, creative malicious compliance. Then I had the spark. High-powered UV blacklights. Invisible UV reactive paint. Oh my, I whispered. Oh my. Yes. The lights themselves would exist outside the visible spectrum. The light wouldn't be the decoration. The paint was the art. It's not a light, Carol. It's art. And my lights? They're just ambient. Very, very ambient. Very, very compliant. I was going to follow her rules so hard. By day, my house would be the most harmonious, blank beige canvas of pure compliance. But by night, her aesthetic discord was going to get a whole new, terrifying, legally sanctioned definition. I needed professional force. I called Spectral Solutions. The voice on the other end, Spectre, chuckled when I said, HOA Revenge. Say no more. I'll be there in 45 minutes. Spectre was a genius. He confirmed my plan was legally sound and technically too small. You don't want bulbs, you want cannons. 4 of them. 400-watt high-output UV flood fixtures. Cannons, I repeated. I like cannons. He agreed to do it for parts and a case of beer. Spectre and his crew were at my house the next day. Carol, of course, was watching. As they started mounting the dark, inert fixtures, she marched right over. David, she called out. What is this? Spectre intercepted her. Ma'am, Spectre, Spectral Solutions. We're installing Mr. Hollowell's new security lights. Those are also regulated, she snapped. Spectre gave her $1 million smile. You don't have to worry about that, ma'am. These are state-of-the-art ambient mood lights. Very harmonious. You won't even know they're on. Promise. Carol retreated, making a note on her clipboard. Investigate mood lights. While they worked, I went on my own supply run. I bought gallons of invisible UV reactive paint, screaming neon pink, electric slime green, psychedelic orange, and blazing yellow. The lights were installed. The paint had arrived. The trap was set. Now, I had to paint the bait, under the cover of darkness. I waited until 1 a.m. I suited up in black clothes. I started on the garage door, painting 6-foot-tall, dripping horror movie font letters, Happy Holidays. I painted giant 10-foot-tall candy canes on the roof line, alternating stripes of toxic green and eye-watering pink. I painted massive, intricate psychedelic orange snowflakes. I painted a full-size sleigh on the roof, complete with 8 blazing yellow reindeer that looked like radioactive mutant coyotes. I was in the zone. I was Michelangelo. Then the masterpiece. I went to the front door, carefully untapped the fine, and painted a giant 2-foot-tall hand, giving the middle finger an electric slime green. I carefully retaped the $150 fine right over the palm. The finger would be perfectly hidden, invisible to the world. A little secret just for me. I finished at 4:30 a.m. I was exhausted, covered in invisible paint, and happier than I had been in years. The next day, Carol watched. She saw no C12S. She smiled. A tight, victorious, I have restored harmony smile. Spectre texted me at 4:30. It's showtime, Captain. Godspeed. At 5:29 p.m., I was in my garage, hand on the heavy-duty switch. I peeked through the crack. Carol was walking out to her mailbox, casting a smug, satisfied glance at my blank, compliant, defeated-looking home. 5:30, on the dot. I grabbed the switch. Harmonious, I whispered, and I threw it. There was no sound, just the heavy, satisfying thunk of the industrial-grade switch. Then the 400-watt UV cannons kicked in. It wasn't like turning on a light. It was like deleting the darkness. A silent, violent purple-white and eldritch blue glow erupted from my house. It was so powerful it instantly washed out the harmonious yellow of the streetlights. Carol, who was halfway up her driveway, stopped dead. She put a hand to her chest, and the paint ignited. The 6-foot-tall, dripping letters on my garage exploded into view. Happy Holidays, screamed in a neon pink, so bright it felt loud. The 10-foot-tall candy canes on the roof line flashed into existence. My entire house, a study in beige submission, was now a psychedelic nightmare, a monument to aesthetic discord. But that wasn't the best part. The high-powered blacklights illuminated everything that wasn't beige. The dandelions on my lawn lit up like ethereal ghosts. And in the best moment, my other neighbor's white toy poodle, Barnaby, who was out for his evening constitutional, trotted onto my lawn. The dog lit up. He went from being a fluffy white poodle to a glowing violet demon hound. He yelped, confused, and bolted back to his owner, who screamed. Carol just stood there. Her mouth was open. She was making a sound. It wasn't a word. It was a high-pitched, sputtering, inhuman shriek. What is that? She finally managed to get out. My eyes. It's indecent. A car driving down the street stopped. Within 5 minutes, the street was blocked. People were getting out of their cars. Dude, it's like a rave, some teenager yelled. Carol fumbled for her phone. Yes, 911. I'd like to report a public nuisance. A chemical light display. He's burning my retinas. Send everyone. I watched all this from the crack in my garage door. The house was glorious. Then I looked at my front door. In the overpowering UV light, the clear tape glowed like a neon blue picture frame. And behind the notice, where the paper was thin enough, you could just make out the faint, ghostly green outline of a giant, defiant middle finger. The police arrived. Red and blue strobes cut through the purple haze. Standing on my glowing porch were 2 officers. The older one, Officer Miles, squinted. The younger one, Officer Reed, looked like he was trying very hard not to laugh. Evening, officers, I said. Sir, what exactly am I looking at? Miles asked. Holiday decorations, officer. Just getting in the spirit. It's a public nuisance. Carol shrieked, marching onto my glowing lawn. Officer, arrest him. It's blinding. It's a chemical hazard. Miles looked at her. Ma'am, please calm down. It's not a chemical hazard. It's blacklights. He looked back at me. Sir, we got a call about a public nuisance. Disturbing the peace. Disturbing the peace, officer? I asked. They're not making any noise. They're not blinking or strobing. They're just on. They are a visual disturbance. Carol shrieked. Section 8, the bylaws. Miles held up a hand. Ma'am, I am not here to enforce your HOA bylaws. That's a civil matter. He looked back at me. But this thing is incredibly bright, and it's purple. Is purple a crime, officer? I asked politely. This was the moment. The legal showdown. No, purple is not a crime, Miles said, rubbing the bridge of his nose. But public nuisance can be. Is there any way you could tone it down, or aim them somewhere else? Well, officer, I said. I'm just trying to be compliant. The rules explicitly ban multicolor bulbs, cool white bulbs, and blinking lights. My C12s were deemed chaotic. So, I had to find a compliant solution. These lights, they're ultraviolet. And that, I said, pointing to a giant green candy cane, is just paint. The bylaws say nothing about paint. I'm just a guy following the rules. Miles stared at me, connecting the dots. He saw the defiant outline underneath the fine notice. A tiny, almost imperceptible smile twitched at the corner of his mouth. He turned to Carol. Ma'am, as I said, this is a civil matter. He's not breaking any city ordinances. His lights aren't strobing. They're not making noise. They're just ugly. Ugly? It's a monstrosity. Carol wailed. That's a matter of opinion, Miles said. And it's not a police matter. He lowered his voice to me. This is the best one I've seen all year, he muttered. But listen, I'm going to have to ask you to turn them off for tonight. Just for tonight to disperse the crowd. It's becoming a traffic hazard. Of course, officer, I said immediately. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I'll turn them off right now. Just want to be cooperative. I went back to the garage, Carol's furious glare boring into my back. I flipped the giant thunk switch. The world returned to normal. The next morning, the counterattack came at 9 a.m. It was a certified letter. Emergency fine and cease and desist. Violation. Unapproved spectral illumination. Article 8, Section 4, Addendum. The fine, $5,000. Due immediately. They'd invented a rule. And the fine was designed to break me. The letter included a summons. An emergency hearing of the Aesthetic Committee has been called for 7 p.m. this evening at the community center. Your attendance is mandatory. I spent the day preparing. I didn't call a lawyer. I just printed out Section 8, Article 4. I found the section in the bylaws about how new rules are made. It required a 30-day notice and a majority vote of all homeowners. That evening, I walked to the community center, my highlighted papers in a neat manila folder. Carol sat at the head, looking like a cut-rate dictator. The three other board members, Jim, the nervous guy, Martha, the confused woman, and Mr. Thompson, the hard-faced man, sat beside her. David, Carol said, her voice flat and cold. We are here to discuss the abomination. Carol, board members, I said, sitting down. Happy to be here. I assume you mean my new, fully compliant holiday lighting. It is a mockery of the rules, David. Carol slammed her hand on the table. I'm confused, I said. I received this fine for unapproved spectral illumination, but I've reviewed my copy of the bylaws, and that rule, well, it doesn't seem to exist. Martha, the confused one, started flipping through her own binder. And the fine also mentions an addendum. I continued, but as we all know, addendums require a 30-day notice to all homeowners and a majority vote. This emergency meeting doesn't quite meet that standard, does it? Jim started to sweat. Well, David, the spirit of the rule. I'm not interested in the spirit of the rule. I cut in. I'm interested in the letter of the rule. The one you wrote. The one you fined me $150 for violating. I took down my chaotic C12s as requested. I have rectified the original violation. This new fine is baseless, and frankly, it's harassment. The room was silent. Carol was purple. This is ridiculous. You're a bylaw lawyer. I'm just a homeowner, Carol. A homeowner who reads. You can't fine me for a rule you just invented because you lost. I stood up. So, I will not be paying the $5,000 fine, and I will not be ceasing and desisting. My lights will be on tonight from 5:30 p.m. to midnight, as is my right. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to get home. It's almost showtime. I walked out of the room. This meeting is tabled, Carol yelled, her voice cracking with rage. Tabled was the sound of surrender. I got home. The lights, of course, were already on. The glow house was officially a town attraction. Carol's house was dark. She'd turned them all off. The lights stayed on. The HOA never sent another letter. The $5,000 fine was never mentioned again. They knew I had them. A few days before Christmas, I added one final touch. I went to my mailbox. I painted very carefully on the side facing the street in small, neat letters. S8 Art 4. It was invisible by day, but at 5:30 p.m., when the cannons kicked on, it lit up. A glowing green testament to the power of reading the fine print. On Christmas Eve, the local news showed helicopter footage of my house. It was a glorious neon beacon in a sea of beige. I sipped my cocoa. Harmonious, I said to myself, raising my mug. Perfectly, beautifully harmonious. So that's my story. It all came down to a homeowner fighting petty tyranny with a strong cup of coffee and a thick binder of bylaws. I found the loophole and weaponized it. But here's the question I want you to answer. Was my $5,000 fine justified by the spirit of the rule, or was my malicious compliance the only ethical way to fight a bully? Let me know in the comments below. Spirit versus letter, which wins? And hit that subscribe button if you want more stories of people using pure logic to defeat neighborhood tyrants.